So I'm super excited today. I wish I would have had this conversation with you 20 years ago, Bridget. I have the honor of speaking with Bridget Grimes today, who is the CEO of WealthChoice. And we are going to be speaking about the importance of knowing what's going on with your money, especially for women who are the primary breadwinners of the family. Bridget, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me, Sheryl. I'm thrilled to be here. So, just a couple little bit snippets about myself. And I think it's important because I serve folks who look like me, and we're going to draw on that in a minute. So, I launched Wealth Choice almost 9 years ago and kind of wound my way to this industry from just my personal experience. I'd been on Wall Street a long time, left, wound up being a pastry chef for a decade, and then when I got divorced, came back into finance purely to help women like me. Wound up as a single mom and as a professional woman, all of a sudden I just thought, what, there is not 10 minutes in the day to worry about my future. So what's going to happen? And a couple of girlfriends were in the same boat, right? Wound up divorced and with kids and really busy. And I really wanted to focus on trying to help women like me live a decent quality of life and help guide them because they really don't have the time and they don't have the expertise. So fast forward a number of years, launched Wealth Choice to really have control of who I serve and how I do that.
And so I love that so much. And a lot of times we were talking about before we went live, being at, well, I don't know how old you are, but I'm in my late 50s. And so now I've actually experienced a couple friends who went through a divorce and they didn't know, or I mean, I guess whether you're going through a divorce or not, if you don't know what's going on with your money, it can really be to your detriment and there can be some really unfortunate surprises. So before we jump into it and a couple, actionable tools that you can get a hold or get the next level hold on what's going on with your money. Why did you care so deeply about this? Was there a person or experience or what sparked your interest in Wall Street and then eventually in finance?
So Wall Street's actually kind of interesting. I was a German literature major, and I'm in my early 60s
Hmm.
to provide a little context here. So when I was in college on the Northeast, everybody, regardless of what you studied, went to Wall Street. Crazy, but true. And I had wanted to work at a German bank, but interestingly enough, in the 80s, if you were a woman and you went to a German bank, they said, sure, you can be a secretary. If you were a guy, you could be in the trading platform. And I just thought, forget that. So I wound up never working for a German bank and wound up in an English investment bank. Now, it's interesting because I just found that trading wasn't my jam. And to me, it's kind of like legalized gambling, and that's okay, but just not how I invest. So I left after a number of years. And, like I said earlier, when I got divorced, it's when I thought I would go into financial planning. So very different from trading, but similar in that there's very few women in our industry, right? That hasn't really changed since the 80s. But my own personal story was that, all of a sudden I was getting divorced from my husband, and we'd been together about 20 years. We had two little kids, and I had never paid a bill. I'd never paid a bill because I was really busy. So my husband, who was an attorney, paid the bills or didn't pay the bills, as I found out. And so we belonged to, three country clubs, very Northeast, right? Living a great life. Only to find out that we had $100,000 in credit card debt that I didn't even know about. So I mention this because our conversation today is what's going on with your money. I had no idea what was going on with my money, and that was a choice, right? I was like, hey, I'm going to focus on other things, and you're going to take care of this, and I am not going to engage because I don't have time and I don't really want to do it. So I really, it was my own experience when I kind of got knocked upside the head, and I just thought, okay, so I have chosen ignorance, and that was a bad choice. And so now I'm going to choose to be engaged, and I'm going to help other women who have chosen ignorance, perhaps, or just really don't have the time to think about where they are.
Yeah, I love that so much that you took something that was a little painful and ended up turning it into power for other people. And so what was really the mindset shift for you? So if, for those people listening who are like, I kind of know what's going on with my money, but maybe they're thinking, maybe they're like me and that I know what's going on with my money, but I think I can know a little more. Uh,
Hmm.
what is the mindset that you need to like really have next level um kind of control and what's the word I'm looking for? Agency
Hmm.
over, your money or your wealth to either grow it or preserve it.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I really feel that women need to be engaged on some level. So when we talk about breadwinner women who are like us, right, Cheryl? I mean, these are women making good money and good careers, very good at what they do in their profession. But that may have nothing to do with finance, and in most of the cases in my world, it doesn't. These are women running businesses. They're in tech. They're attorneys. They're super accomplished in their space. And it's interesting because they may be earning, really decent money, but they don't really know where it goes. And that's a problem because when someone comes to me, like a woman did recently, attorney in a Manhattan law firm, very senior, making really good money. She said, "You know what, Bridget, around the water cooler, we came together, and some folks were like, hey, I've got $4 million in my 401k. And others were like, I've got 2 million. And she said, I just kind of was horrified because I felt like I don't have nearly that, and I should, and I don't really know where I am. And this is a woman who, has two homes, living a very good life, but had zero idea of really how much it took to get to a place where you could choose to stop work, and just hasn't done a great job of saving, honestly. And so, I go back to for folks who there's a couple things to unpack here. One is, do you even know where you are financially? And then the next thing is, if that's not where you want to be, then let's talk about how you could change that, right? What your choices are. And so when you talk about mindset, I really feel that a lot of this is choosing to engage and choosing to really focus on improvement. And there are no, you can come to us with no money, and that doesn't mean that you're doomed or you're a failure. And a lot of folks have tremendous embarrassment and anxiety around money. I have sat with many women, smart women, who are very anxious and are pretty convinced that everybody in the entire world is better off financially than they are, because they really don't know. Like, you don't know. I mean, if you're watching Instagram, you may think that everybody pretty much is ahead of you, but I would venture to say that that's probably not a really accurate picture. So for me, when folks spend a little bit of time on where they are, and what I mean by that is, do you know when you earn your paycheck, every time you get paid, where does that money go? Do you know where that goes? Do you know what your mortgage is and your property tax and how much you spend on groceries and what's left over at the end of the month to spend where you want to? Is there even money left over? So we walk clients through a really simple spreadsheet. And if you don't like that, there's some great apps that you can use, but really engaged with just enough time to figure out, what is my cost of living to keep the lights on in my life, what we call fixed expenses, and then what's left over every paycheck. And am I saving? Am I saving enough? Where's that money going? But starting there, Cheryl, and then if you realize, hey, maybe I'm not getting further along with my intentions, my money's not going where it's most meaningful to me, that's where you start. But you start with awareness, and then you make incremental change over time. And these women are so busy, which is why I love that we only meet virtually, right? It's super efficient. We show up, we get it done, we go back to work. But it's helping these folks find out where they are right now, and then say, okay, you know what? We are incrementally going to take some action so you're not overwhelmed, so we get something done.
Yeah, and I think you really hit the nail on the head because if women are busy making a lot of money, but we can also spend, we can make a lot of money, but then we could also spend a lot of money. So just kind of knowing, kind of back to the basics of what's coming in and what's going out. And
Exactly.
and then is there something that is, because it seems like we were talking about earlier that it makes sense for obviously everybody to know what's going on with their money, but is it different for women? Is there anything different for women who are the primary breadwinners?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. So what I'm seeing now, and the answer is yes, it is different for women who look like us. And what I'm seeing now is some folks who are being squeezed on both ends. I see clients with aging parents now. So a call last week with a client. I've worked with this woman for at least 15 years. And she said, okay, so I just learned that my mother will officially be out of money at the middle of next year, 2026. She's in a nursing home now. It's $120,000 a year. And she said, and nobody else in my family is going to have the money to help her. So it's really interesting because we check in with clients every time we meet on, is there anybody we need to plan for? Is there anything we need to have a plan around when, we're looking at this portfolio and we're looking at your savings? Are we covered? And there are these things that happen that come out of left field. And all of a sudden this client said, okay, so when you look at everything I have, I need to have an extra $120,000 as of the middle of next year for I don't know how long. I don't know how long, and there's longevity in her family, and her mom is in her 80s. She could make it another 20 years. I mean, people live a long time in this family. It's possible. So this is the kind of stuff I'm seeing. I'm seeing aging parents who don't have the money and don't have a plan. And since our clients do have the money, they feel obligated to help. I'm seeing those adult children who aren't really launching, who are looking for support, which is a whole conversation about what is reasonable to sacrifice from your own future, and what is reasonable to give a child, and at what point do you say, hey, I need you to be self-sufficient. I do have a lot of these women who also have kids in college, and in most cases I would tell you our clients have prepared. We have had this conversation since the children are born. We should have a plan. So that shouldn't be surprising for our clients, but on occasion when we take a new client on who's further along in life, whose children may be in high school, they haven't prepared, we need a plan around college, and we need a plan that will not torpedo our client's future. And women tend to be really good at saying, I'm coming last. I'm going to pay for your college. I'm going to buy you a new car. You can go to Europe and I'll worry about myself later. And we try to provide guidance that says, okay, so let's talk about the implications of your actions if you decide to put money over here for your children. And so right now, I see a lot of competing things. I see parents, I see children. I do see sometimes folks trying to keep up with the Joneses. I do. And that's a conversation for folks. But really, what I think a huge challenge for these women is that they are so focused on work. They are really focused on their careers. There is literally no time to think about, I do not know how much money I have. I don't know if I'm saving enough. I don't know if I'm on track. And when people need money from them, family, they just write the checks without understanding the implication. And this is where I think it's important to have a guide, because you need to know what your choices are before you make them, and then you have to recover.
Yeah, because if you're a giver like me, I literally have given my kids the shirt off my back.
Mhm.
Like literally my daughter, she's like, oh, I really like that shirt. Here.
Right?
Like
I believe
literally,
it.
like literally and figuratively. But I think it's a whole different conversation, whether it's a child or a parent says, oh, I need 10 grand a month, or even if it's a one-time thing or whatever it is, for you to have a clear picture and to say, yes, I'm glad to help. It's totally fine because I know what I'm going to need for the next couple decades or what have you, rather than just writing it. And I think there was an article in the New York Times a while back about parents that are in their 60s who are now paying off college loans for their
Right?
kids. And I read that,
Right?
like my jaw dropped, because I'm like, that is just like broke my heart.
Mm-hmm.
Like, taking out second mortgages on their homes and I know it's probably not the case if for women who are the main breadwinners, but still, even if you're making well north of seven figures, you can spend whatever you make, you can spend. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really important, to your point, to know what's going on with your money.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So what do you think is, for those listening, thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed because I am so busy. I am the main breadwinner, or I'm a significant breadwinner in the family. And there are people, whether it's children or parents, that are kind of dependent. What would you say is the most important first step or two to either get control of your money or get further control of your money.
Sure. And I think what you had mentioned before, when you know what you're earning and what you're spending and what's left over, only then can you actually commit to helping your family or whoever you want to help, right? Or wherever you want to spend that money. And so, I'm thinking of a relatively new client who is a bit behind the curve in terms of how much she is saving for her future. She maxes her 401k out, which a lot of us do. That's easy, but that's not enough. And in most cases for our clients, that will never be enough to replace the lifestyle they have now because they make good money. So it's got to be more than that. So in this woman's case, we went through basic spreadsheet, right? Here's my fixed expenses, what I have to have. So there has to be this 10-minute investment in yourself to figure out, okay, how much is my cost of living that I have to pay and what is left over? And by going through this exercise, we determine that every month after taxes, net of all of this fixed expenses, she can commit to $15,000 a month to save for the next 10 years. So she has the cash flow, but it's just been going wherever. So now we're going to say, okay, we're going to be super intentional, and we've chosen a number that works for her. And this money automatically goes, directly to an investment account that will be invested with the goal of funding her future. So in order for us to get to that point, she had to know what her costs were. And I know it sounds really basic, but I will tell you that for our clients, brilliant women, this is where it starts. And just knowing where that money is, where it's going, and what you're left with, then you get to say, okay, here's what I can afford to put toward college or toward my aging parents. But you know exactly what you are able to do without sacrificing your own self.
Yeah. And it seems like sometimes, even because I've recently been through this exercise, and sometimes it's really easy to forget, like if you look at income and expenses, that expenses aren't just what we're paying out every month. Like an expense is paying yourself,
Mm-hmm.
paying yourself into your future. And
That's
so it
right.
seems like that, I'm putting air quotes around expense. I mean, it's not an expense going to someone else, it's coming back to you, but it's still an expense off your bottom line as far as what you can spend.
For sure. And one thing I wanted to mention as well, when you're talking about what are unique issues for these women, a very big part is their career, and this is where I know you help them. But this is also a huge part for us. What is the plan around that career that you have, that profession you have? What is your business plan? Because that is generating all the money that we need for all these things that are important to you. And having a plan, whether it's working with a coach and figuring out, where are you going to be in 1, 3, 5, 10 years with that business? What can you expect to earn over these periods of time? Are you advocating for yourself when it comes to equity? Are you negotiating as much as you should for your pay and your salary and your benefits? That's a part where we help them on the dollar side, and where I believe coaches help them on the strategy side. And I think that is absolutely critical for these breadwinner women.
Yeah, so that is something that really, it seems very unique to breadwinner women as far as understanding. And again, it's that something that I help map out, and just throwing it out there. I'm super excited to do kind of this joint webinar coming up with you as well. So we'll post more on that later. But really thinking about those long-term plans, long-term goals, and negotiating and speaking up for what you're worth and all of those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, okay, so knowing what's going on with your money, tracking what's coming in, what's going out. And also what I'm hearing is too, don't forget the piece of what's going out. In other words, what's going out, but boomerang back to you for your future.
Mhm.
Um, and then is there anything else that, either breadwinner women or women who are earning a substantial amount for their family that they should keep in mind?
I really just, in terms of an action item, I would really just suggest folks either use an app or, just get control of a spreadsheet, something where they are really clear on the dollars and cents and what's coming in and what's going out. I mean, I can't say enough about working with a CFP. Like, this is not a self promotion thing, but I've got to tell you, These folks don't know what they don't know. And if you don't have a guide, there's no one who's going to hold you accountable. And I think that that's a good amount of the work that we do and my peers do. And you find somebody who's really good to give you some guidance, but they will kind of hold your feet to the fire, and say, okay, you committed to this. And so where are we on that? And you know what, every time you go back to, things will change, right? Like the client who called about her mom who's in the nursing home. Life is changing all the time. So being able to go back and say, okay, here's where I was, here are my intentions, here's what just happened. Had a client who just got divorced. I never saw it coming. We did not know why they kept canceling meetings, but now we know. And so, attorney, right? A lot of our clients are women attorneys, and now we go back to square one. And this has really changed the future, right? Because instead of having joint money, now there's two separate people, and there's half as much money for two different people. So, being mindful of where are you right now and checking in on that. I mean, I check in myself. I do this for a living, but it's super easy for folks to check in and say, okay, here's what I said was important to me. How am I doing? Here's something that totally took me sideways. Let's regroup and see how I am. But it's engaging, because this is all about you. You are the one who gets to drive this. And if you have awareness, that is everything, right? If you have awareness, then at least you have a starting point and you know where you are. And you can go back to that and say, hey, am I still okay? Or has something changed to get me off track?
Yeah. And it just seems like if you are a breadwinner woman, or like a main breadwinner woman, or a significant contributor to the family, you are busy bringing in money. You're an expert in what you're doing. You're not an expert in finance. So just like in coaching, people would hire me. I am here to say that it is just so very important to have that financial accountability and to carve out that time for that. So if you are thinking that this sounds like it might be impactful for you or necessary or interested, I'm sure Bridget would love to have a conversation with you. Or if you have any questions for her, you can find her on your website, or what's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to wealthchoice.com. And I am a huge fan of referring clients, or prospective clients, to my peers. As long as it's a CFP professional, I feel really strongly about referring people away. And guidance is awesome. So you
Yeah.
can go to our website and we can hook you up with someone.
All right, perfect. Well, Bridget, thank you so much. I look forward to our event in a few weeks, and I look forward to following your amazing journey and also just deepening my knowledge of keeping track of my money.
Thanks for having me, Sheryl.